Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Madison. If you're new here, I do energy healing, I do channeled messages, and really I just talk about different metaphysical and spiritual things that I'm learning day to day. So today we are going to be talking about the battle of light and dark. This is something that I have been interested in since I was a kid. So I'm going to talk to you guys about what I mean by the battle of light and dark, what I have channeled, what I have experienced, and I'm also going to share some ideas for sort of protecting or cleansing your energy if maybe you feel like something funky's going on. So let's get into it. So when we talk about a battle of light and dark, we're talking about people that come to Earth, whether it be people or entities or negative spirits. And some people come to Earth to make it a better place, and some people come because they want to keep Earth low vibrational. By low vibrational, I mean stuck in the 3D, stuck in fear, stuck in worrying about just trying to like get by. So that way we can never really expand or evolve, and there can just be all these worker bees, and everybody who has all the money can just stay in control of all the money, and everybody else can be the little worker bees, right? So for me, I always understood that like the societal hierarchy in this battle of light and dark were intertwined, but I could never really put the pieces together, right? So whenever I was a kid, and still I'm 33, still love Harry Potter. So whenever the best way to explain it is like as a kid, I remember watching Harry Potter and seeing all these battles of light and dark go on in other realms or behind the scenes that 99% of the population has no idea is going on, but there's these battles of light and dark. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what's happening here on Earth with like spirits and things like that. But I didn't really know how to explain it or what it all meant, right? And if you're new here, I've had spiritual gifts since I was a kid. So I've seen spirits since I was a kid. So I've had a lot of time to ponder this, right? And then another thing that I remember about Harry Potter was that they had this class, the Defense Against the Dark Arts. And I was like, yes, like I know we need something like that as humans to protect us from the negative spirits or entities that might be trying to deter us. But again, I was a 90s kid, so saying or thinking those things as a 90s kid was absolutely insane. Now it's obviously a lot more accepted. But I very much like that was like the first part where I started like really wondering like what does this battle of light and dark look like? And so let's talk about psychic attacks, because I believe, and again, whenever you tune into my episodes, whatever resonates with you, add that little piece of knowledge. If it doesn't, just leave whatever doesn't resonate. But I very much believe that there is this battle of light and dark going on Earth right now, as we're in this really pivotal time where it's like there is a lot of darkness that wants to push this World War III agenda, and then there is a lot of light that wants to step into the new Earth. And so we're literally right now in this like huge push and pull where we have so much polarity here. We have everything to people that are literally living in new earth societies, to people that are living in poverty and war-torn countries, and everything in between, right? And so my experience is I have definitely come into contact with spirits who have been negative. And here's what I've seen. And I debated if I was going to share this part because whenever I saw this, I was a little bit like, ooh, and I never want to share things that are like fear mongering. But like this specifically came up and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna include that. And my guides were like, no, you should, because it would connect dots for people. So maybe this will connect some dots for you. Whenever there are light workers that come and incarnate on Earth, there are basically dark spirits, entities, whatever you want to call them, that are sort of assigned to those light workers to put them down the wrong path, minimize their impact, whatever that looks like. And so let's talk about how that can happen, because obviously like we only see and exist in the 3D. So a lot of this that's happened, we might not see and understand real time, but like here's an example. Let's say you say out loud to your spirit guides, hey spirit guides, I really need a sign about if I should get back together with my ex-boyfriend. And there's a negative entity that hears you ask for that, and they sort of hijack that and then maybe send you signs in the opposite direction of which way you should go to deter your path or to keep you in a lower vibrational state for longer. Which is crazy to say, but that's definitely something that I have seen happen, and it's also something that I've experienced in my life. And we would a lot of times refer to that in the spiritual community as a psychic attack, meaning that there was some sort of negative entity or influence that was at some point influencing your consciousness or your subconscious or your, in something to give you the wrong information to keep you from being able to fully step into your purpose, right? And that's why there's this battle of light and dark, because if this new Earth Society comes in, there's a complete just change of how everything operates, right? And there's a lot of, honestly, just beings that thrive off of negativity and low vibration and things like that. So, I talked about psychic attacks in terms of kind of how this occurs, but let's talk about other ways that I've seen this come up, because I think the best way to talk about dark entities is to share my experiences with them. So that's where we're about to go. But before I do, I want to kind of put this out there. So whenever I was channeling this, I was like, okay, so explain this to me. People come here to make a difference, and then there's just these beings that are interfering with their free will. And the answer was not really. That anybody who has an entity that they come into contact with or that they have to part from, they have some sort of contractual relationship with that entity or being. So I'll give you an example. I had a lot of entities that were negative that were showing up in my life whenever I was fully stepping into starting to do stuff like this, teach Reiki and Akashic Records classes and all this sort of stuff. And during that time, it was very much like there were a lot of negative beings around me that I could tell I had past karmic contracts with. So maybe there was a being that was around me that in a past life, maybe I made a contract of, oh, get me whatever in this lifetime, and like we can work together. And I say that to say, like, a lot of us have had pasts of maybe being deceived by negative beings that we thought were positive, that we maybe enter into a contract with to maybe help Earth, but now we're not getting what we thought we were getting, and so it's this karmic thing that you have to like fully part with at some point in your life. So I was basically shown that I had a lot of those negative beings that had been around, where, like, let's say they had maybe come in and pretended to be a being of light. I had agreed to work with them, and then plot twist, they weren't, right? Which actually sadly makes sense for me, because I am unfortunately a little bit naive when it comes to like trusting people's what they say, if that makes sense. I've definitely gotten a lot better with discernment now, but I was like, oh yeah, that checks out. So in this lifetime, I have had to kind of come into situations where there's been like negative entities around me, and I've had to like call my spirit guides in to sort of get the negative entity away from me and kind of out of my zone. And a big thing is like, this is a big reason that they show up, is because it's a distraction. It's something to keep you from being able to fully step into your purpose. Okay, so let's talk about entities. So entities and negative spirits are sort of the same thing. So we can have a negative spirit maybe that's just around, and by a negative spirit I mean that could be anything from like a fallen angel to a stuck spirit, and we will talk about stuck spirits in a second. But entities. So I teach and do Reiki. So probably 6 months into me doing Reiki sessions on other people, I started to notice, not very often, but 1 out of every 5 sessions, that people had negative spirits that were actually stuck in different chakras that were keeping them lower vibrational. Let me give you an example. Let's say somebody in a past lifetime agreed to be a S worker, and they chose to do that in some sort of negative contract where, again, maybe they thought they were getting something positive to make a new life or whatever, and then they were deceived. So that maybe negative being that contract was made with could maybe show up in your sacral chakra, which is where your connection to sensuality and pleasure is. And so it's so interesting because some of these entities show up and they're literally connected to not even this lifetime, right? Um, and so whenever I first saw entities show up, how they showed up for me, so I'm very clairvoyant. So whenever I'm doing a Reiki session, my hands may be on or above the person, but like I am channeling, looking into their chakras. I am sometimes seeing objects, colors, a little bit of everything. But this was very specific because this looked like there was a snake. And it basically looked like there was this like snake that was like coiled, and it was weird because I saw it and I kind of like called my spirit guides in, like, what is this? And immediately like my spirit guides came in and they put like, I don't know what else to describe it other than like, basically if you're gonna go in like a biohazard room and they put like a bunch of stuff on you, like that's what happened. Like my spirit guides came in and they put these things on my hands that looked like almost like Hulk hands, and then this whole like cloak, and then they were like, okay, now you're ready. And I was like, for what? And I like went in to try to like, normally I would like pull out negative energy that I find like that. So I go in and it's almost like this entity tried to attach to me. Like if I'm not going to be in this person, I want to be, attached to you. And I was like, oh, that's why. So, I'm like having my spirit guides help me like get this negative entity out, and it's like the snake that's this negative entity is like wrapping around these Hulk hands that I have. So it's almost like me and my spirit guides like get the entity out of this person's sacral chakra, and then it's almost like they just like take the whole thing that was like protecting me like off, and then that like transmuted the energy of the entity or like removed the entity. It was crazy. Like it was a wild experience. I actually haven't really told people that much about my work with entities, so I love that I'm just putting that on the internet first thing. Love that for me. But yeah, so for me personally, normally they show up in some sort of snake form, and normally whenever it happens, I'm immediately, now it's happened enough times, and I'm like, okay, spirit guides, I need some. I literally ask for my Hulk hands now. Like I don't know what else to call them. I'm like, hello, I need my Hulk hands, thanks. And then they'll literally come and put like the protections on. Most of the time, a lot of times it's almost like this snake, like again, I'm clairvoyant, so this is all happening kind of in my mind's eye during the Reiki session. Sometimes it's like the snake will try to like bite my hand and try to get in that way, but it's like biting like the whole hand, and sometimes it will like wrap around, right? So it's always different, but it's always very clear that that entity is like, no, I am here because I am negative and low vibrational, and I want to keep this person negative and low vibrational because that's safe for me. And if I can't attach to them, I want to attach to somebody else. So what I normally do about that is I will ask my guides to either just remove the entity from being able to go back into other humans, or I will ask them to transmute that entity's energy into positive energy, whichever can be done, because everyone's a little bit different, right? So the intention is always like, you don't pull it out now that entity's going somewhere else, that it's either, being transmuted into positive energy, or sometimes I'll sort of like envision myself like freezing entities almost in like a frozen ice cube, and then it's almost like they're in this frozen little state as entities, and so they're not able to like come back and harm other people. All right, so I have two or three more examples I want to go through with you guys. So whenever I first started to hear about entities, I started to be very interested in possession. Like, can people be possessed by spirits? If so, what does that look like? And the answer I got was yes and no. So it's never like a person's soul is fully not there, unless they're a clone, of course, but it's never like the person's soul's fully not there. It's like maybe they made an agreement with a negative, lower vibrational being. Hey, you get me whatever, and I will, push your agenda. If we kind of think like a typical political example, you give me political fame, I'll push your agenda. And they they become possessed where it's not fully them. Maybe it's like 5% their soul, 95% this negative entity that's kind of running the show and running the subconscious and the conscious mind, right? So I had heard of this concept. I was very interested in it. I was channeling it. I was like, is this real? Can this happen? And it was very clear, like, yes, but it's not an invasion. It's always a contracted experience in this life or a past life, which is why a lot of times people have entities and they don't understand why, because they didn't enter into anything in this lifetime. But those traumas can still show up at the soul level, like lifetime over lifetime in the chakra system, or kind of just in the energy body or the light body. Okay, yeah, so I was really interested in this. I was like, hey, spirit guides, like, what does this, like, can you help me explain it? Like, help me understand it. Like, what does it look like? How do these people show up? Like, I don't really get it. So At the time now I've actually just moved all of my in-person offerings to a place in downtown Greensboro called the Pear Tree. That's a holistic wellness collective. But prior to that, I was in an office space downtown Greensboro. There was like a back door you could kind of go in, and get to like, that was like the easiest way to get into like my specific office in this giant building. So I go in and I'm immediately like, whoa. And there's this woman there that's like sitting by the back door, and she has like a backpack. And I don't know how to explain it other than I immediately was like, this doesn't feel like a person, it feels like an alligator. Like, it very much felt like I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get away from this as quickly as possible. And then it was almost like that snake that I had seen in Reiki. It was almost like I could see that snake like coiled around this woman's body, right? And I was like, oh, uh, it was the most uncomfortable energetic experience I think I've ever had with a stranger, and I've had quite a few. And so I literally like go in my room. I'm like, oh, I did not like that. I like get some sage. I light some incense, and she comes like from wherever she's hanging out by the door. She comes and she kind of hangs out like at the entrance of my office. And I'm like, Holy Spirit guides, can you guys come in? Because what the F is going on? I wanted like an up close and personal, but like this is too much for me. And it's like I'm talking to her, but since I'm clairvoyant, I can see like all of these negative snake entities just like wrapped all around her as she's standing there in front of me. And honestly, I can't even remember. Oh, I do remember what we talked about. She asked me what I was setting up for, and I happened to be setting up for like a higher self meditation or an Akashic Records meditation, something that was high vibrational. And it was almost like immediately when we got to that conversation, she just vanished. Like, she just walked away. A few minutes later, I went out there. She was nowhere to be found. And I was like, that was crazy. But I was like, guys, what the heck just happened? And they were basically like those, you wanted to kind of see what it looks like when a person is mostly being ran by negative entities. That's what it's like. Just this crazy, erratic, just very unsafe, very unstable. I don't know if you guys have ever talked to like somebody who's like probably on alcohol and drugs, but it was very much like that experience, but she wasn't on drugs, right? So anyways, weird experience. And basically they were like, did you notice, this is like me to my spirit guides, they're like, did you notice how she never like fully entered your office? She stayed like at the doorway. I was like, yeah, what the fuck was that about? Because I was like on the complete other side, right? And it was basically like the like light and protection of my office space literally would not allow her to like her darkness to like cross over. Like, it was like literally like that there was like a barrier there, right? Because whenever I had come in just a few minutes before she came in, I went around and like normally I'll sage like the perimeter and like do like incense around the perimeter. So it was literally like that I had done was literally like keeping the negative entities from like it was crazy, you guys, crazy. Okay, so that again, just weird experience. Like, nothing ever came of it. I never saw her again. It was basically my guys were just like, you wanted to see what it looks like. That's what it looks like. So I don't know. It was giving like, and I hate to say it like this, but definitely like, maybe you're kind of talking to yourself, kind of erratic, doesn't make any sense. Like, that was kind of like the person, and we've all kind of had probably at least one of those contacts. So let's go into one more example that's similar but different. So so I just want to talk about like spirits as a whole. So a lot of times people think, oh, if I come into a spirit, it's automatically negative or it's automatically positive. And I want to clarify, just like there's all levels of human from high to low vibrational, spirits are the exact same thing. If you connect with a spirit, there are high vibrational spirits in things like the Akashic Records, which is what I channel because it's a container of light. And then there are obviously negative or lower vibrational beings that may want you to deter you from your path, or they might need something from you. So this is an upset spirit interaction is what I wrote down. So where I live right now, we have our next door neighbor, her and her kids and their kids all live together. And the grandmother passes, so the whole family moves out like pretty quickly after. And probably a month after the family moves out. She's probably been passed for maybe 3 months at this time. We're playing in the backyard, and it's me and my boyfriend and my stepson. We're like playing soccer in the backyard, and immediately when I crossed over like the line of like our property to like their property, this very angry spirit that was the woman that had passed away came through, and she was like, where did my family go? Why did they leave me? I've been looking everywhere for them. And she is what we would refer to as a stuck spirit. And a stuck spirit is essentially somebody who has passed, but they haven't fully crossed over and they're literally stuck in one spot. It could be a home, a hospital, a graveyard, wherever they think they're waiting for somebody or can't find somebody, or they're attached to a physical location. That's where they could end up, right? So basically, I am also a medium and I work with stuck spirits as not really a part of my job, more as just like as it comes up. But I've definitely done medium readings for people before where I've had to move the spirit over, as a part of the process. But this is more just kind of like when spirits come, I'll help move them over. And so I, am able to kind of like explain to her, like, hey, if you go into, the other side, you're actually able to, you can come back here if you want to, but you can also go see where your family actually is, right? You don't have to be stuck in this one place because, they, decided to move to another location, and so it gave her, as a spirit, this freedom to actually go back and be a spirit guide for the family rather than being stuck in that location trying to find them and not being able to, right? So I shared that to just kind of share the wide range of spiritual experiences I've had. But I've had contact with spirits that are just like so happy and so at peace and so happy to just like be in their little happy land, and some that are just very stuck and scared and unsure, right? And so I wanted to share that to say, like, there's all these ranges of experience, right? Of light and dark, and all of those things exist in the metaphysical just like they do in the physical, right? So let's talk about why this is going on. I sort of was like, okay, what's the biggest reason for why the dark is so insistent upon not letting the light win? And one thing is it's a battle, right? So the darkness operates from a fear and ego vibration, meaning the darkness wants to be on top or to be the number one, even if it's not good, it strokes the ego, Part two is to keep Earth asleep in the 3D and in fear. And I was like, that makes actually a lot of sense. And if you think about like what's going on right now, just like with everything in the world, like a lot of people that I've been working with recently, and as well as some experiences that I've had personally, are feeling like it's hard to connect spiritually sometimes with everything going on in the world. That's intentional because there are all of these things being just sent out and done at all these different times to kind of keep us focused on that so we can't progress spiritually or consciousness wise or whatever, right? So let's talk about what can you do. So if you are watching this and you're like, okay, I think maybe I want to start doing protection for my home, for myself, whatever, here's some ideas and here's some things I personally do. So as I mentioned, sage. Sage you can get from any metaphysical store, any crystal store, and you'll light your sage. Normally what I do is I'll sage myself. So I'll literally just kind of like go around my whole body with the sage. Then I'll also take my sage and I'll go around the entire perimeter of my house. Normally I'll invite my spirit guides in and just say like, I cleanse the space of any negative energy. You can do the exact same thing with incense. So that's sort of like whatever feels better for you. Other options for crystals is, or other options for protection is crystals. So I have this black ring crystal that I wear all the time, and it is for protection from negative energy. So if I'm working with somebody that maybe has an entity, and that entity were to try to attach to me, it would get absorbed by this black obsidian, which is a protection crystal. You can also use things like selenite, but I personally have black obsidian in my home, and then I also have it that I wear with me. So that's personally something where I think that if you are heavy involved in this work, and like me personally, like I even do things like house clearings where I'll go into people's homes that they're like, hey, something's here. So for me, it's sort of imperative to have kind of these different ways of protecting and cleansing, right? You may be in a situation where you're like, maybe I don't need it right now, good to know for the future. Again, take what resonates. So last thing for protection, Reiki or any form of energy healing that you learn is going to be super, super helpful for this, because when you learn how to protect and bubble and manage your energy, you're able to better protect yourself and notice when negative energy is around, and then you're able to, again, maybe better discern or bring in guides for help for protection. So I do think learning some form of energy healing puts you in a place where you might be a lot more aware that this world exists, but you also might know what to do to keep yourself in a better space a little bit more, especially if you're somebody who maybe you are a tarot reader, you're working with the population every day, but you need a way to kind of not take on all that energy. Reiki is a great way to do that. I do Reiki on myself pretty often. Like yesterday, fun fact about me, I've been learning how to ski for the past few years. So yesterday I took like a pretty solid like oof down the mountain, slid like 50 feet. And immediately my neck is like, ooh. And so I'm just like sitting there like, okay, we're just gonna give my neck some Reiki. We're gonna give this side some Reiki before I even like got back up and like continued the day, right? So that's the cool thing about it, is you can do it anytime, anywhere. So that is all I've got for you guys for the Battle of Light and Dark. If you want to see more content like this, you can join my 5D membership. It is everything that you need to do and implement to continue on your spiritual ascension journey, including accessing your Akashic records, your past lives, your soul purpose. All of that is in my 5D membership. You can try it for a week for free. And in the 5D membership, there's also new curriculum that comes out every single week. So this video specifically is something I normally would not post on YouTube. I would normally only post it to 5D. So to give you an idea, this is the kind of content and depth that we go through in the 5D that you might not fully experience on YouTube. Same thing with if you want to work with me one-on-one. I do offer one-on-one Akashic Records readings, virtually, in person, whatever you prefer. I do distance Reiki, and I also have a few different circles I do every month that are really focused on being able to connect people with spiritual community, and also just create a safe space for people to talk about what's going on, because a lot of times people are having new spiritual experiences and they maybe don't have that sounding board. So that's definitely a big goal of those as well. I also will do a retreat later this year. More information to come on that whenever I get to that point. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Everything is linked in the show notes and in my bio. And as always,